Hello, my name is Connie Nicholson, and I'm with North Fresno Church in Fresno, California. So we are in our third week of our 4-week unit called The Rich Literature of the Bible. 2 weeks ago, we looked at a text from Deuteronomy and a text from Matthew to hear God speaking to us through the law. And then last week, we explored how God speaks to us through the prophets from the book of Malachi, accompanied with the Gospel of Luke. As I shared in our opening study 2 weeks ago, during this unit, we're pairing two scriptures together, one from the Old Testament and one from the New Testament, to provide us with a deeper discernment and understanding of what God is speaking through Jesus into these Old Testament texts. So today, we're going to be studying how God speaks to us through visions. We'll be examining an Old Testament vision from the book of Ezekiel, and then looking at a vision given to Paul that casts a similar message and perhaps even brings clarity to the Old Testament vision of Ezekiel through the work of Jesus in his death and resurrection. So last week in our study of Old Testament prophecy, I explained that these prophecies have these two dimensions to them. There's the historical dimension in which God speaks through a prophet to God's people within a particular historical context. And then there's this dimension of prophecy still speaking a message of hope of God's unfailing covenantal love to us today. So there's the historical and then there's the present. So even after the historical fulfillment of prophecy, the promise of covenant faithfulness is still present within the prophecy, offering hope to us, to you and I, still reading it. Hope is still alive. A similar but slightly different topic is that of visions, and that's what we're talking about today. So unlike prophecies that present a future, or to use language from last week, they present a plan and a promise from God, visions are often shrouded in a bit more mystery, with images and concepts and ideas carrying a lot more symbolisms. Our curriculum writer, Steve Pardini, defines visions as foresight or insight or images on which to reflect. He says these encourage us to reflect deeply so that we might gain insight into what God might be saying to us. While prophecies are typically more literal, visions tend to have a lot more symbolic traits, at least in its early stages. Oftentimes, I've noticed that visions come along when our human minds can't quite grasp a God concept. This idea of God speaking to us through visions articulated nicely in Job 33:15. It says, "In a dream, a vision of the night, when sound sleep falls on men, when they slumber in their beds, he opens their ears and seals their instruction." Job explains that God speaks to us in visions when our minds are quiet, to introduce concepts probably broader than our current way of understanding. Our scriptures are loaded with visions in both the Old and the New Testament. Through the Spirit-inspired visions of Peter and Cornelius, for example, the Gentiles became accepted into the family of God, which they previously would not have even been considered if it wasn't for the visions which guided their understanding of what it looks like to be the family of God. Both our authors noted that visions are even more available to us today, post-Pentecost, and the coming of the Spirit to all people. It is the Spirit at work dropping these seeds of vision and ideas and turns us towards God and scaffolds our ability to understand these deeper concepts of God. If I had to explain a telephone to Father Abraham, for example, I would have to use objects and concepts of his day to form kind of a bridge between what he already knows and a vision of something that is so far in the future that his brain cannot understand it without some scaffolding to help him understand it. So visions are God's scaffolding to help hold up these new ways of knowing that our brains are still trying to make sense of. So in our two texts today, we'll see how Ezekiel's vision begins seeming rather bizarre. But then centuries later, after the death and resurrection of Jesus, Paul brings clarity to the symbolism of Ezekiel, bridging the resurrection into a more understandable reality. What seems far out, impossible in Ezekiel gives us hope in Ephesians. The question marks from Ezekiel are turned into exclamation points in Paul, and now our understanding and experience and hope of Jesus has deepened our language of resurrection and God making all things new. Both visions are important in our development of this concept. So hope is the key concept in both Ezekiel and Ephesians. And I'd encourage you to consider both of these visions kind of simultaneously as you read them. So I'm going to jump to the book of Ephesians. In Ephesians 37, Israel is still held captive in Babylon and is growing more hopeless. The vision of Ezekiel's dry bones reassures the people of God that God has a plan for them, and this is not their end. Read through the Discover section, considering how you would feel to receive this vision from God if you were at a time in your life where you felt most hopeless. Make space for parts of that vision that don't make sense to you. Use the lesson prompts provided and questions to consider the symbolisms of Ezekiel 37. What are the images presented in this passage? As you hold these symbols in your mind, turn to the New Testament now and open up to the book of Ephesians in Paul's writings. In Ephesians, Paul gives language to this Ezekiel text through the death and resurrection of Jesus. Be sure to leave yourself adequate time to explore the beauty in the connect section. Consider the promise God speaks through Ezekiel's vision. How is the death and resurrection of Jesus, the first fruit of the Old Testament vision, coming to pass? How does this reality of the new resurrected life of Jesus Christ shape our lives today? I hope you enjoy the development of Ezekiel's vision as it unfolds in the Old Testament and then comes into greater clarity in the New Testament and continues to be the hope that we hold in Christ Jesus. May we be people who extend this future hope to a new generation of people. Have fun.